Judy, this is a video response on your video called Breaking News About Destini Productions. I suppose pretty much from a catchy phrase, there's no news involved in what you are representing. All I found was hearsay research. So this is a video response to yourself as well as all the people that you've infected with your hearsay messages or research. I've been part of Destini since its inception. So when I met Bernard over 10 years ago, I met him as a businessman who was developing educational software as well as selling the educational software. I decided to get involved within the business, and after participating in the business for a while, I started hearing stories about Bernard's brother. So I asked Bernard about this, and he essentially informed me that it took his brother 24 hours to hijack his business once he had given him power over the financial reins of the business. Now, hearing something like that, I was like, wow, how can anybody do anything like that? So I kept on asking more questions. I even discussed it with Rickis, who was one of the programmers that actually came with Bernard after the breakup of the business. And Rickis essentially confirmed the same information to me. He said to me that Bernard's brother was employed by Bernard. He was essentially employed by Bernard to do programming on educational software. And just before the software was completed, this is when the hijacking of the business happened. So I let that whole concept go within myself, and we kept on building the business and we kept on walking. But I also kept on listening to the stories that Bernard would tell. For example, the stories where while he was in university, he was tested on a reading apparatus, something that costs quite a bit of money apparently. And within this testing machine, he realized that his reading skills are not that well developed, even though he was reading 7 books a week. And from that testing that was done on him, he decided to look at developing educational software programs that can actually assist people to develop their reading skills, develop their developmental skills within practicing eye movements, within practicing comprehension, within getting to a point where the human being is not working at the pace of the teacher, but working at the pace of themselves, which is what a computer would give to any student, for example. And after listening to a lot of these stories, I started realizing that, if Bernard's brother did develop the idea and the concept, then he would have had a history within the educational line, which he didn't. He was in the upholstery business before he joined Bernard in his business. So these were just small little points that came together over time. Essentially what I concluded between Bernard and his brother scenario was that Bernard had a great flaw inside him, and that flaw was based in the principle that he actually trusted people. He trusted that there is an inherent good in all people, and moving from this belief, he gave people too much responsibility, who mistook this responsibility that was given to them as actual personal power. You can work it out for yourself. If you are working from the power of a responsibility that's given to you by someone else, when that person is not giving it to you anymore, you don't have personal power. because it was never yours to begin with. So it's a fascinating dichotomy that is created within that. So that brings us to the point of where we started creating the business. So we created quite a big business, a multi-million rand educational software business, which took just over 3 years to develop. But it's fascinating how history keeps on repeating itself. Greed started showing its head again between the people who, if there's a lot of money involved within a business, and you have people who believe that they can take over certain principles of the business and they can do it themselves, then people will do that. And it's all just based in greed, which is essentially what happened again. We had investors who were part of the business because we required funding, because we did in-house funding for the educational software products at that stage. So we were involved with funders who had very, very deep pockets, who would put forth a few million rand at a time as cash flow to the business in order to support it within the financing that it required. So together with these investors and one of the very, very strong marketing arms within the business, what happened there was they started looking at hijacking the business and taking the concept and recreating it where they would be the benefactors of the business. So this time round, I was essentially part of the whole cycle, where I witnessed how human greed supersedes any type of principles that any person has, because essentially at the end of the day, within the economic sector, if there's big money involved, people get greedy. Yeah, so that point happened twice for Bernard. It happened once for me, and I was basically witness to the whole point as it played out. So essentially from that perspective, we then looked at closing down the selling arm of the business and just focusing on the administration, the technical support, and the maintenance and repair of any of the business that was sold previously. And we did this for a while. This is also the stage where we started looking for the farm, because we saw that that cycle had closed and that cycle was finished, and it was time to look for a different aspect. How can one work with human beings to create a world with education that would support humans, and one would not go into the concept of greed and only focusing on the economic side or development of a human or just a group of humans. At this stage, the portal had already opened up, so there was a lot of research that Bernard did on that. I mainly focused on managing the business in its core design of what it was at that stage. I also started looking out for the farm. Well, there wasn't a farm at that stage. We were just essentially looking for properties. And when we finally found the farm, it took us 6 hours between seeing it for the first time and signing the papers, because it was a good place to start developing our next phase of what we were looking at doing. Alright, so that's a little bit of information on just the random information thrown together from Bernard stealing a concept to creating a farm. So that's the filler in between. So there you have it.